So our next speaker is going to show up online in a minute, is Dr. Barbara Plankensteiner. She's the director of the museum Rothenbaum in Hamburg and the co-founder of the Benin Dialogue Group. She will talk about a joint endeavor, the German restitution of Benin bronzes to Nigeria. So please welcome online Barbara.
Yes, hello everybody. I hope you can see and hear me. It's a great pleasure to introduce you to this history. And I try to make it short, so bear with me because it's a very complex story. I would like to talk about a specific restitution process and why it happened in the first place. Trying to move I cannot move my presentation. Sorry. To the next slide, yes. As you might have followed in the news last year, approximately a year ago, on December 20, a large delegation from Germany traveled to Nigeria to officially announce the restitution of a large number of so-called Benin bronzes from 5 German museums. And it was officially celebrated in Abuja with the ministers of culture and the foreign ministers of both nations, and also in Benin City, where the seat of the former kingdom, the king of Benin is seated. The decision was made a large 2 years or 1.5 years ahead of this major moment. During that celebration, 20 objects have been physically returned, between which a very iconic ivory mask from the collection of the Linden Museum in Stuttgart. In total, over 1,000 Benin objects in these 5 major German collections have been returned before in all the 5 federal states in which the museums are situated, and all signed an agreement with Nigerian representatives of transferral of ownership of their complete Benin collections. So in Hamburg, we signed that agreement on December 16th. So you see the official handing over and signing ceremony at the Rathaus in Hamburg, and our museum has transferred ownership of 479 Benin works. This agreement was before negotiated with all the 5 museums and federal states in Germany, and with a variety of Nigerian stakeholders. And I was part of this delegation that negotiated from the first decision to go ahead with the restitution process that was made in April 2021. We started our first, we went for the first time to Nigeria in May 2021, and there have been several visits back and forth in which we negotiated the terms and conditions of the return, and several political announcements in Nigeria and Germany have been made. And in this agreement, there is laid out that both parties have a major interest that the collections, Benin collections, should be still accessible also for German public, even though the collections have been or will be officially returned to Nigeria, which has happened already, as I told you. And in the agreement, we agreed upon that approximately 2/3 of each collection will permanently return to Nigeria when Nigeria announces the wish for the physical return. And approximately 1/3 will remain as a loan for a length of 10 years, which can be always renewable, or so objects could be exchanged. They will remain in the German institutions. This process has been predated by many things happening, not only in Germany, but also in other European countries. One initiative that certainly has cleared the ground as well, apart from activists and other parties who have fought for restitution processes, specifically for these Benin works, and I will tell you why later, why they are so iconic for this process. The Benin Dialogue, a group of museums that got together for the first time in 2020 upon an initiative of myself and a colleague from the National Museums in Nigeria at the time, Mayo Adediran, after we had jointly worked on a major exhibition project on Benin art and culture that was first shown in Vienna in Austria, and then traveled to Berlin, to France, to Paris, the Quai Branly, and to the Art Institute in Chicago. And after this major international exhibition project on Benin art, we felt there's a necessity to do something about this question of restitution, and we agreed that it is an endeavor that we have to jointly pursue on a museum level between European museums and Nigerian stakeholders. At the time, this was the National Commission for Museums and Monuments and representatives of the King, the Oba of Benin. The group enlarged with time. We tried to meet every year, and soon many other institutions joined this initiative. We also had in 2019 a major meeting in Benin City, where then a major project was announced, and I think that was also crucial that in Europe many institutions and also in Germany decided to support the restitution process, and particularly the political level. We had also a meeting, a first meeting after the return of the German, this major part of the German collections. There are still other German holdings in smaller institutions. And we had a meeting in 2023 in which we were speaking about how can we continue our collaboration. So in 2019, this project, this MOBA project, was officially announced in Nigeria, major vision of the renowned architect David Ajayi, which for a first step, so-called institute, which will be a research center and small exhibition space, will be opened next year and is already in construction, supported also by funding from Germany. On the side, one major outcome of the Benin Dialogue Group, in which now basically all major institutions in Europe that hold large Benin collections was also a digital project, because there was the wish, this wish existed for decades in Nigeria, specifically from the Edo people, the Edo-speaking people in the area of the former Benin Empire, to have an overview of the collections that have been scattered all over the world after British colonial invasion. And we got together in October 2019 to define a project because we had interest from a German foundation to finance this project, which was an idea already in the minds of many people for a very long time. And we were able, with the support of the German Ernst von Siemens Art Foundation, to finance this project, Digital Benin, what was launched last year in November. And this has been now expanded this year in a prolongation and will have a further extension from the Mellon Foundation that will allow us to program this kind of platform that reassembles cultural heritage spread over many institutions to make that an open source program that can be used also for from other heritage communities or countries or interested entities. In our project, we assembled Benin collections from over 131 museums in 20 countries, and you can check the platform online under digitalbenin.org, and it's a very exceptional project. But why was it so important to return these Benin works, and why are they so iconic for colonial loot? And I think it's safe to say that this was one of the largest art loots in history, because the complete treasure of a royal house in this kingdom that lost its independence after the British invasion was taken away from colonial troops or left the place in the aftermath of that. And ended up in museums all over the world. And as you have seen, it's in pieces from that loot ended up in 131 museums worldwide. And one major route, apart from British soldiers who brought the objects back, or official loot brought back to Britain, one major route in which these objects have been spread was also the Hamburg port. And this moment in history, 1897, when this all happened, it plays a very significance in the remembrance culture locally of the Edo people and in the Benin Kingdom. And so many contemporary works of art deal with this subject. After the decision was taken in 2021 to go ahead with the restitution process, we decided in our museum, and also the other 4 museums did that. We all opened exhibitions about our Benin collections. And in Hamburg, we decided to show every single piece that we had in our collection and that we were going to return, to give an overview also to the people what this art means and what our Benin collection comprises, from first-class works of art that are very significant for the history of the kingdom, to small little items that are really fragments or have been used in daily life. We also presented the results of our provenance research that clearly showed that our collection was very much related to the Hamburg port and its trading networks. And we also told a lot about the history of the Benin Kingdom and why these objects are so important, not only for the history of African art as such and the kingdom itself, but also their significance for the people as an archive of knowledge that has been lost. And it's a very interesting fact also that this was a very prominent kingdom also in the minds in European histories, because it was known since the 15th century and was a main trading partner with Portuguese, Dutch, later France, and French and British traders, and very late also Hamburg trading agencies. And this is reflected very much also in the art, and particularly the trade of bronzes is present very clearly in your works of art. And you see here, for example, a very important plaque for the history of the Benin Kingdom, because a lot of the history is recorded in the art, and it's still remembered in many ceremonies that take place still up to today in the kingdom. And also Hamburg played an interesting part, not only in bringing and distributing the objects looted after the colonial invasion, but also in the trade of metal from Central European sources to Africa from the Hamburg port through the Portuguese trading networks in the 16th, 17th century. Yes, and so the art gives testament of a very ample and rich court culture in the 16th, 17th century. It depicts kings that have and sculptures that have been placed on very important ancestor altars, reflecting very important spiritually also for the constitution of the kingdom. And you might know all these very fine and really impressive works of art that are sort of an apex of African art and are present in all big art collections worldwide, and the highlight there. But these works of art, like these heads, they also have a very important significance, spiritual significance. So you see how they have been kept in the palace on royal ancestors' altars that have been all destroyed during the loot. And this is, for example, an altar that is existent still today. So all these practices still exist, and it will be a major moment when the largest part of these collections will return to the kingdom and be available to view for the larger public. And you see here, the kings are still in place. It's a very important, the king is a very important spiritual figure for all the people, but also very relevant and a very also has a very strong political influence locally. Also Benin, we should not forget, is also a very important center and dynamic center of art production today. And so it is also very important for artists working locally to have access to these works of art in place and not having to travel to Europe or the US or wherever these collections are still located. Yes, so this is my brief overview, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Barbara.